Hello, and I hope this message finds you well. I wanted to talk today about something I've been thinking about, dwelling a lot on for the past, I would say, couple of years even at this point. It's been a very poignant topic in my life, and that is how to navigate minor dips in health, alerts about health, so-called health crises. This video could also equally be called navigating hypochondria, because I feel that's a synonym for what I'm talking about. The inquiry here is, how do we discriminate among vital and important messages about our health and stories about our health that arise from or give voice to deeper insecurities or more mundane worries? How do we tell the difference between those two things? And I think initially, I've been thinking about doing this video for a long time and I haven't. And part of the reason is I wanted to feel like I had, reached a plateau on this topic, had sort of concluded my thinking about and feeling into it. And I'm noticing it seems this lesson is as pertinent for me as for anyone else. And so I may not reach that state. This may be something that I continue to work on, that continues to work its way through me for some time to come, which actually parallels multiple of my pieces of advice about navigating these moments. So I may not reach that final state. I may not reach that perception of mastery. So the most I can do at this point is talk about some principles I've gleaned, both from experience and from people in my community, and perhaps that will be useful to one or both of us, me creating this recording or you listening to it. So the first principle is getting in touch with the energetic body. And this is a very multifarious principle because it can play out in several different ways. Just to start off, my disambiguation of this first principle, according to Western medicine, the body is a physical construct independent of any kind of animation by spirit, and illness is due to this external contagion, which we can either ward off or submit to, and if the latter, then we need to, kill that contagion, kill that pathogen. And the easiest way to see the natural consequence of this is to look at the COVID paradigm, which emerged and then dissipated over the past couple of years. This philosophy of illness is something out there that's going to infect me and I have to protect myself from it. And I can do that with a mask or a vaccine, et cetera, et cetera. When one becomes acquainted with the energetic body, and I mean by that the sense of life or aliveness, not only within particles, but between them. So sort of in the space that we can sense into through things like meditation or yoga, in the space within our body, the space among our cells that kind of suffuses those things, you can feel this energy or this vibration that is a kind of essence deeper than physical matter. From that place, illness can sometimes feel like a passing phenomenon in the same way an emotion is, and indeed can be difficult to decouple from emotion. Sometimes when we are feeling negative emotions, we then get what we would call sick, which begs the question of whether the illness is just a manifestation of the emotion. And there's a whole body of research on this. Louise Hay is a notable figure. David Hawkins is another notable figure. People who have explored this idea that different illnesses are expressions of different emotions. If this is true, locating and discharging the emotion can be a way of facilitating the passage of the illness. So one can sense into the body and notice, I'm feeling anger or sadness or stuckness, inertia in my life. And if I let that quality, that energetic state dissipate, then whatever correspondent illness seems to vanish as well. There are other techniques. Sometimes when I have an illness and I don't attribute it to a particular emotion, I can kind of go inside and I can visualize white or golden light kind of flooding into the area affected by the illness and expelling it. And I believe something tangible happens in the energetic body in response to that visualization. And so the illness can be hastened along or purged in that manner as well. Often just sensing into the energetic body, we will notice that what we had taken as illness is in fact just transitory passage of energy. So some energy whose origin, whose nature we may never know, for some reason became lodged in a certain area of our body. And so we come away from that and conclude, I have a headache, I have a sore throat, whatever, these linguistic ways of fixing something more illusory and giving it a medical diagnosis. And we might notice if we really investigate energetically, oh, there's actually nothing there. It's just energy that needs to move. This is in the same way, I should say it's a microcosm of the way in which the universe as a whole is just passing energy. We have names for different forms we've conceived of in our minds. We say, I have a body, there's a tree there, this is a car, etc., etc. But all these things, if we really zoom out, are just passing phenomena. And so we can take that angle, take that lens onto our own bodies. So that's principle one, just getting in touch with the energetic body, seeing what's there, seeing how we can breathe in, breathe out, and help it pass through. And this will come into play in the third principle, which really undermines, really deconstructs the notion of what illness is to begin with. But before that, the second principle is just waiting. So speaking for myself, I have a tendency to give things definitions, and they're always worrisome definitions. The so-called passing sore throat I described, I might tell myself is, a sign of a chronic condition that bespeaks some other frailty that I have to look into, have to investigate, or need to see a medical professional about, rather than, just taking a step back and sort of giving away that self-diagnosis as a passing phenomenon. Something a friend encouraged me to try on that, this friend has been studying Chinese medicine, and this is kind of an approach within that field. And this is, don't take seriously, any symptom that has lingered for less than, let's say, a week or 5 days. This is a magical principle, because rather than concluding that I have an illness and that I need to take medicine or I need to see a doctor or whatever, I'll just rest and get quiet and tap into the energetic body, like I said. And usually within a day or two, whatever it is gone. A recurrent principle here from the first teaching, the first principle, is just getting acquainted with, getting familiar, comfortable with mystery as well. When we do this, we might not know, quote unquote, what is going on with us, but rather just be in the flow of these passing energies that bear no name and need no name. So that's principle 2. Number 1 is getting in touch with the energetic body. Number 2 is just waiting. Need some water here. It's a chronic condition, this needing water. I'll expire any moment. The third is seeking verifiable data, and this squares well with the other two. So let's say I do have something that is more chronic or recurrent. I've tried waiting and the condition hasn't seemed to elapse, and now I'm growing worried. Well, this means speaking with a medical professional, keeping a journal, and seeing what sort of external or measurable manifestations there are of my quote-unquote illness. And at a point, if nothing can be found, then I'll have to attribute the phenomenon to my mind and just let go of it. And that can actually be really relieving when it's like, okay, I sought the outside data. I asked an expert to look at me and they could find nothing wrong. This actually happened to me toward the end of the summer. I had a blood test whose results were universally fine, except that I had a high bilirubin count, which has to do with the liver, and if it's exceptionally high, can indicate jaundice. And I went into this insane spiral and was looking at my eyes in the mirror and was like, they're yellowing, I have jaundice, certainly I'm soon to die, etc., etc. The same doctor who did my blood test had said, if you're worried about it, he said, usually there's nothing wrong, but if you're worried about it, why don't you get an ultrasound for your liver? Why don't you get it checked out? And I did that, and my liver was perfectly normal. And now I can rest assured, okay, I had this outlier, and I checked into it, and there's nothing wrong. And perhaps later in life, I can check again if it continues to be a worry for some reason. But for the moment, just having this data point out there, which is really using objectivity to quiet my subjectivity, it helps calm me and helps me gain peace of mind if I am dealing with these flare-ups of self-diagnosis. So taking the three together, let's sense into our energetic body, see what we can help facilitate there. Let's wait and become alarmed only if something has a long duration or recurs. And if that's the case, then we can seek verifiable data and see what it confirms for us. And of course, if there does seem to be something wrong, we can then either renew our energetic approach or see a practitioner of some form or any combination of those two things. So these are all ways of rendering a flowchart that might help facilitate more peace of mind around this issue. In closing, the final thing I want to say, and this goes into the mystery I mentioned earlier, this is that my finding is that the more I investigate these matters, both externally and in my internal domain, the less certitude I feel about what health and sickness even are. As I mentioned at the beginning of this transmission, Western epistemology has this dogmatism about illness being this quote-unquote external agent that we have to defend against and can kind of purify ourselves from. And, antibiotics arise from this, and again, masks and vaccines and sanitation, and there's a philosophy here that, if you boil it down, is quite simple and not always true. Few philosophies are universal in their truths. The more I bow into these methods of acquainting with my own health and illness, the more I find that I'm never absolutely healthy in the sense of being free from contagion, just as I'm never absolutely sick in the sense of being totally overcome by it. Even in my moments of health, I am somewhere along these undulating waves of needing rest versus feeling more vigorous, or my body kind of flaring up and combating a virus versus feeling more free from those influences. And when I'm sick too, there's vitality within me, there's health within me, which is surging to quell that virus, or there's the emotional wellness of being able to take time for myself, being able to rest when I'm sick. Illness and health start to blur together into this continuing series of waves, which really devastates the separation of the two concepts to begin with. And this too, paradoxically and humorously, turns out to be, a helpful approach which we can take to so-called illnesses. When we recognize that we're always somewhere on the continuum from health to illness and that the two blend into each other seamlessly, we cease to get as worried about our so-called moments of illness, and we become better able to say, I'm not feeling that well today. I'm going to take a rest, and hopefully I feel better tomorrow. And as the mind steps back, everything passes phenomenally and fluidly. So these are some of the principles I have learned and have been learning as I've navigated some of this terrain myself over the past few years, as well as obviously watched it, sort of metastasize collectively. And again, I hope that some of this was useful to you on your own journey. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have a blessed day. Bye-bye.